My name is Amelia, and the night I finally gave in, everything changed. I told myself I was strong enough to resist, brave enough to hide my feelings. But when his eyes met mine and his touch lingered longer than it should have, I realized I was only lying to myself. That night wasn't planned, it was a surrender. A surrender to a love I shouldn't want, and yet could no longer deny. The air that evening felt heavier than usual, filled with the kind of silence that makes every heartbeat sound louder. I had promised myself countless times that I would never let my heart wander into dangerous territory, that friendship was safe, stable enough. But deep inside me, the truth had been knocking for months, maybe years, and I knew it wouldn't stay buried forever. He was there again, sitting across from me, laughter softening the edges of the long day. The room glowed in dim lamplight, the shadows playing across his face, highlighting the sharpness of his jaw, the gentleness in his smile. He wasn't supposed to be mine. That was the unspoken rule, the invisible line we both knew existed. And yet every moment with him blurred the boundary, pulling me closer to the edge of something we couldn't name. I leaned back against the couch, clutching a mug of tea, trying to steady the tremor in my hands. He told a story, one of those small, ordinary anecdotes that should have been forgettable. But with him, even the mundane felt profound. His voice was smooth, steady, carrying warmth that seeped into my bones. I laughed at the right moments, but my mind wasn't on the words. It was on him, on the closeness, on the unbearable urge to close the space between us. He noticed, I think. He always noticed. That was part of the danger, how easily he could read me, how quickly he could strip away the masks I wore for the world. With a single glance, he saw the ache I tried to hide. And that night, he didn't look away. The laughter faded into quiet, the kind of silence that wasn't empty but heavy with possibility. His eyes held mine a little longer, a little deeper. I should have looked away. Instead, I felt my breath catch, my chest tightening as though the air between us had thickened. My fingers gripped the mug tighter, desperate for something to anchor me. Then it happened, small, simple, but earth-shattering. He reached across the space, his hand brushing mine as he set his cup down on the table. It wasn't an accident. I knew it the way my body knew to tremble, the way my pulse raced. His hand lingered, warm against my skin, asking a question he didn't dare voice. And I didn't pull away. I let the silence speak, let his fingers curl slightly, let my own heart betray me as I tilted my hand toward his. It was the softest touch, but it carried a storm inside me. My chest ached with the weight of all the feelings I had tried to bury, desire, longing, the desperate need to be seen, to be wanted by him. "Amelia!" he whispered, my name breaking the silence like a confession. The sound of it in his voice unraveled me. It wasn't just a name, it was a plea, a promise, a warning. I closed my eyes, not to escape but to memorize the sensation of surrender. His thumb brushed over my hand, gentle, reverent. And in that moment, every wall I had built came crashing down. I finally gave in. Not with reckless abandon, not with wild passion, but with quiet, aching acceptance. My body leaned slightly toward his, my heart choosing what my mind had forbidden. His eyes softened, relief and longing spilling into the dim light. He didn't move quickly, didn't rush. He gave me every chance to stop, every chance to retreat. But I didn't want to retreat anymore. I wanted to feel, even if it broke me later. His hand slid gently up my arm, the touch both tender and electric. My breath shook as I let him in, not just physically, but into the parts of me I had hidden from everyone. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of being vulnerable. For the first time, surrender felt like freedom. We didn't speak much that night. Words would have broken the fragile magic we had created. Instead, we let silence and touch weave a story. His hand resting on mine, his shoulder brushing against mine, his gaze lingering with unspoken promises. It wasn't about passion or fire. It was about connection, about the truth that had always lived between us finally being allowed to breathe. Time blurred. Hours passed, but it felt like moments. And when he finally pulled me into his arms, it wasn't with force but with reverence. I melted into him, my fears dissolving against the steady beat of his heart. The world outside didn't exist anymore. There was only us, suspended in a fragile, forbidden dream. I knew it wouldn't be easy. I knew the morning light would bring questions, doubts, guilt. But that night, none of it mattered. I had given in, and in doing so, I had found a piece of myself I didn't know was missing. The days after were different. Every glance carried weight. Every touch was charged with memory. We didn't talk about it, not at first. But it was there, in the way he lingered a second longer when he hugged me, in the way I caught my reflection smiling when I thought of him. It was both beautiful and dangerous, a secret that lived in the quiet corners of our lives. Sometimes I asked myself if it was love, or if it was simply the comfort of being wanted. But then I'd remember the way his touch had steadied me, the way his presence had made me braver. And I knew it wasn't just comfort, it was something deeper, something that couldn't be erased. One evening, weeks later, we stood on the balcony watching the city lights. The air was cool, carrying the scent of rain. He stood beside me, close enough that our arms brushed. I glanced at him, and for a moment, I saw the same conflict in his eyes, the struggle between right and wrong, fear and desire. "Do you regret it?" he asked softly, his voice barely above the hum of the city below. I looked at him, my chest tightening with the weight of the question. I thought about the night I finally gave in, about the warmth of his touch, the way my fears had melted away in his arms. Regret? No. The only regret would have been never knowing what it felt like. "No," I whispered, my voice steady. "I don't regret it." His hand found mine again, fingers lacing with ease, as though they had always belonged there. And in that quiet moment, I realized that giving in hadn't been a mistake. It had been the most honest thing I'd ever done. Now, looking back, I understand that night changed everything. It didn't just blur the line between friendship and love, it erased it. It forced me to face the truth I had hidden for so long. The night I finally gave in, I learned that love doesn't always follow the rules we set for it. Sometimes it hides in forbidden places. Sometimes it waits for us to be brave enough to surrender. And when we do, it rewrites everything we thought we knew about ourselves. Emotional reflection. I gave in to him, and in doing so I gave in to myself. It was terrifying, beautiful, and unforgettable. Even now, I wonder, was it weakness to surrender, or was it the truest kind of strength? Maybe the real question is, if love feels this right, even when it's forbidden, should we ever call it wrong?